Ladies and gentlemen, take a moment and really listen, because not every message that reaches us arrives through words, and not every warning shows up with a loud voice. Sometimes the most urgent message of your life arrives quietly, almost like a whisper, almost like a tremor moving through the soul. It shows up when you least expect it, when your guard is completely down, right in the middle of an ordinary day, and suddenly everything feels different. The air feels heavier. Your heart beats in a strange, unfamiliar rhythm, and somewhere inside you, you just know that something important is trying to reach you. Tonight, I want to talk to you about exactly that kind of message. I want to talk about the message from your person, the one you assumed had gone silent for good, the one you thought had drifted too far away to ever come back, the one you believed had moved on, disappeared, or simply chosen a different road. But deep down, underneath all of that, the connection never fully died. It never really vanished. It stayed alive somewhere in memory, in emotion, in that invisible language the soul uses when words fail. Here's something worth sitting with. A human being is never quite as simple as the mask they choose to wear in front of others. The conscious mind might say one thing out loud, but underneath it, there's almost always another voice speaking a completely different language. We tell ourselves stories to get through the day. We pretend we're fine when we're not. We act like we've let go long before we actually have. We smile while we're hurting inside. We keep ourselves busy so we don't have to sit with loneliness. We go quiet even when our heart is screaming for us to say something. But that deeper part of us, the part we don't fully control, remembers everything the conscious mind tries so hard to forget. It remembers the sound of a voice. It remembers the touch. It remembers the conversation that never got finished. It remembers the promise that was made. It remembers the pain, and it remembers the love. And that's exactly why some messages don't arrive when we want them to. They arrive when we actually need them. Maybe you've been wondering lately why this particular person keeps showing up in your thoughts, uninvited, again and again. Maybe you've felt a strange pull, an emotional disturbance you can't quite explain, a sense that something is about to shift. Maybe certain songs keep finding you at the worst possible moments, or certain memories keep resurfacing out of nowhere, and you feel a presence you can't put into words. Maybe you've woken up with a heavy chest and no logical reason for it. Maybe some part of you senses that someone out there is trying to reach you, not through a phone call, not by knocking on your door, but through some deeper layer of your being that doesn't need technology to communicate. That's not just your imagination running wild. That's not weakness. That's not nonsense you should brush off. Sometimes the psyche knows something before the eyes ever catch up to it. Sometimes the soul receives a signal long before the body understands what it's feeling. Sometimes the energy between two people becomes so intense, so unresolved, so emotionally loaded that even silence starts carrying information. Even distance starts carrying meaning. Even absence turns into its own strange form of communication. And if you're hearing this today, maybe, just maybe, this message is meant for you. Here's the first truth worth holding on to. When someone becomes urgent in your energy, in your thoughts, in the way they keep resurfacing, it often means they're carrying something they can no longer hold inside on their own. It could be guilt. It could be regret. It could be longing. It could be a truth they've delayed telling you for far too long. It could be the slow, painful realization that they lost something rare and irreplaceable. It could be the fear of losing you completely, maybe for good this time. Sometimes a person only understands the true value of a connection after life has shown them exactly what emptiness feels like without it. They might not have the courage to come out and say it plainly, but somewhere inside, their soul already knows. Their mind might put up a fight, but their heart remembers everything. Their ego might resist, but the deeper part of them stays restless. And that restlessness is often exactly what creates this sense of urgency you're picking up on. Think about how often people delay the truth in general. We delay apologies. We delay love. We delay vulnerability. We delay the one message that could actually heal something broken. We wait until the moment has nearly slipped away entirely. We wait until the other person is already halfway out the door. We wait until the pain gets louder than our pride ever could. We wait until our own silence curdles into regret. What doesn't get faced consciously has a habit of coming back around anyway, showing up as pressure, as tension, as some kind of emotional crisis, as a sudden and urgent need to finally speak up. That's exactly why some people, after months or even years of silence, suddenly feel this uncontrollable pull to reach out. Something inside them simply can't stay hidden anymore. Now let me get to the real heart of this message. The message from your person isn't random, it isn't casual, it isn't just some ordinary passing thought. It carries real emotional weight behind it. It carries unfinished energy, the kind of intensity that only builds when someone has been thinking too long and feeling too deeply for too long a stretch of time. It carries the kind of truth that got postponed, denied, buried under fear, and is now finally rising back to the surface. Maybe they're realizing that life is simply too short to keep pretending everything's fine. Maybe they're realizing that love left unspoken has a way of curdling into pain. Maybe they're realizing that the distance between two hearts becomes unbearable the moment one of them finally wakes up to what was lost. Maybe they're realizing that you were never just some passing chapter in their life. You were something closer to a psychological imprint, a symbol, a mirror, a feeling that entered their inner world and simply refused to leave. That's the real power of a deep connection. It doesn't just skim the surface. It reaches into the shadow, into the hidden places, into the parts of a person they don't show to anyone else. And once something settles in there, it tends to stay, even if they physically move away, even if they distract themselves with everything else life has to offer, even if they tell the whole world they're perfectly okay. That deeper part of them keeps responding anyway. This is exactly where the urgency starts to mean something. It's not only about the words themselves, it's about timing. It's about a soul reaching the point where it simply can't stay in hiding any longer. It's about emotions demanding to finally be recognized. It's about an inner world pushing its way out into the open. It's about a person finally feeling the real cost of everything that went unsaid. Maybe they miss you. Not in some shallow, surface-level way, but in a way that just sits heavy in the chest and refuses to leave. Maybe they've been trying so hard to be strong, and that strength has quietly turned into exhaustion. Maybe they've been trying to stay detached, and that detachment has curdled into a kind of emptiness they didn't expect. Maybe they've been trying to move on, only to discover that moving on just proved how much deeper the bond really went. Maybe they've tried to forget, and forgetting simply hasn't worked, because that memory was never only stored in the mind. It lives somewhere in the body, in the emotions, in places logic can't quite reach. That's precisely why this message feels so urgent. The soul knows when time is running short. The heart knows when something valuable is slipping through its fingers. That deeper, unspoken part of a person knows when the window for honesty is closing. And once that recognition sets in, it stops being containable. It breaks through as urgency. It breaks through as dreams. It breaks through as strange little signs that seem to appear out of nowhere. It breaks through as a sudden, almost desperate need to speak, to confess, to reach out, to return. And maybe that's exactly what's unfolding right now. Let's not underestimate just how powerful silence can actually be. Silence isn't always peace. Sometimes silence is pure pressure. Sometimes it's fear wearing a very quiet disguise. Sometimes silence is the battlefield where love and pride fight it out behind closed doors. Sometimes it's the space where a person rehearses exactly what they should say, over and over, and never actually says it out loud. Sometimes silence becomes the very prison a person built for themselves without even realizing it. A person can be deeply moved on the inside and still stay completely silent on the outside. They can feel overwhelmed and still keep their distance. They can be full of love and still act cold as ice. That's one of the strange paradoxes of human nature. We assume that emotions always show themselves clearly, but that's often far from true. Frequently, the strongest feelings hide behind the most carefully controlled behavior. The more intense the emotion, the more some people work to manage and mask it. And yet, the body always gives something away. The energy gives it away. The mood gives it away. The timing gives it away. Their sudden appearance out of nowhere, their unusual quietness, their indirect attention, their emotional hesitation, their curiosity from a careful distance, their need to know things about your life without ever asking you directly. All of it is saying something, and you may already be sensing it. You might feel like someone has been circling around your energy lately, not fully present, but not fully gone either. They may not have sent that direct message yet, but it's already forming somewhere inside them. They may not have typed out the words yet, but the truth is already alive in there, waiting. They might be struggling with exactly how to start, because beginnings require real courage, and courage is often the one thing people are shortest on when their heart is genuinely on the line. The human personality tends to work in layers. There's the face we show the world, the version we perform for others. There's the shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. There's the inner masculine and feminine, the deeper instincts that shape how we relate to the people we love. And there's some deeper center underneath all of it, quietly seeking wholeness. When a relationship touches these deeper layers, it stops being simple attraction. It becomes something psychological, something almost spiritual, something transformational. That's exactly why certain people unsettle us so deeply. They wake up parts of us that were asleep. They expose things we thought were safely buried. They challenge the false peace we'd carefully built around ourselves. Sometimes a person enters our life not just to stay, but to reveal something. They reveal our needs. They reveal our wounds. They reveal our attachment patterns. They reveal our fear of being abandoned. They reveal our fear of real intimacy. They reveal a longing we didn't even know we were carrying around. And when they leave, or when the connection gets complicated, the psyche keeps processing everything that happened long after the relationship itself has ended. That processing can take time. It can take tears. It can take long nights of silence. It can take years, honestly. But something inside keeps working on it regardless. And this is exactly why a message like this can arrive much later than you'd ever expect, because emotional truth has a habit of showing up late. A person might only recognize your value after they've genuinely felt what your absence feels like. They might only understand your importance once their own life goes quiet without you in it. They might only realize how much they leaned on your presence once they no longer have access to it. And in that exact realization, urgency is born. They might suddenly feel this need to tell you something that once felt completely impossible to say. They might suddenly feel compelled to admit what they spent so long denying. They might suddenly feel a pull to come clean, to return, to explain, to ask, to heal something that's been sitting broken for a while. None of this is neat or tidy. It's not elegant. Human beings tend to get messy when it comes to love. We're rarely brave at the right moment. More often, we're brave too late. But being brave late is still being brave. A truth that arrives late is still the truth. A late confession still carries real weight if the heart behind it is sincere. Now let's go a little deeper into this. This message matters because it represents a threshold, a specific kind of doorway between what used to be and what's about to become something new. It's the space between denial and awareness, between separation and reunion, between silence and speech, between fear and honesty. A threshold like that can feel dangerous to the ego because crossing it demands real change. It asks us to step out of a familiar kind of suffering and into an uncertain kind of truth. And a lot of people do everything in their power to avoid that threshold altogether. They stay in the pain they already know because at least it's familiar. They stay stuck in the old story because at least it protects them from feeling too exposed. They stay silent because at least silence protects their pride. But deep down, the psyche can't sit on a threshold forever. Eventually it pushes. Eventually it insists. Eventually something inside says, enough, enough pretending, enough waiting, enough hiding. Enough denying what's actually real. That's exactly why an urgent message can feel like something close to fate. Not because fate is some magical, childish idea, but because there really are moments when the inner world and the outer world line up in a way that forces a real decision. Your heart can't ignore it anymore. Your mind can't shrink it down to something smaller. Your body can't just dismiss it. Something has shifted. And now the truth wants a voice of its own. Maybe that truth is simply, I miss you. Maybe it's, I never actually stopped thinking about you. Maybe it's, I was wrong. Maybe it's, I should have told you all of this sooner. Maybe it's, I'm not as okay as I've been pretending to be. Maybe it's, you mattered more than I ever knew how to put into words. Maybe it's, I'm afraid I've already lost you. Every single one of these carries its own kind of urgency. Every one of them holds a wound underneath it. Every one of them is a doorway leading somewhere deeper. If this is your message today, understand that the heart behind it isn't always trying to manipulate you. Sometimes it's simply trying to survive its own honesty. Sometimes the message shows up because the inner conflict has grown too strong to carry any longer. The person is torn between what they feel and what they've already done, between what they want and what they're afraid of, between pride and love, between the mask and the deeper self underneath it. That kind of inner conflict produces a very specific, recognizable kind of energy. It feels heavy. It feels restless. It feels like unfinished business hanging in the air, because it is. What goes unsaid becomes its own kind of presence. What gets avoided becomes a weight you can almost feel. What gets denied eventually becomes a call that won't stop ringing. There's a useful idea in psychology here. Whatever keeps returning to us is usually asking to be integrated, to be understood rather than pushed away again. That means a repeating pattern isn't there purely to punish us. It's there to teach us something. A repeated thought, a repeated memory, a recurring dream, a pull you keep feeling toward the same person, all of it can point toward some unresolved part of yourself. Sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about isn't only a person. They're also a symbol of your own unfinished emotional story, representing the part of you that still longs, still hopes, still fears, still loves. So when you feel this kind of urgency rising, ask yourself not just what they might be feeling, but also what it's revealing inside you. What part of your heart is waking back up? What old wound is getting pressed on? What hope is being revived? What truth are you being asked to finally face? Because sometimes the message from your person is also, quietly, a message meant for you. It might be telling you to stop ignoring your own intuition. It might be telling you to stop settling for connection that only skims the surface. It might be telling you to honor something your heart has known for a very long time already. It might be telling you that real love, when it's genuine, actually reshapes something deep inside a person. It might be telling you that certain bonds aren't random at all. They're the kind of encounters that leave real fingerprints on the psyche. And once the psyche has been marked like that, it doesn't forget easily. That's exactly why one small message, one single line, one sudden call, one brief confession can shake a person to their core, because it never arrives alone. It arrives carrying memory with it. It arrives carrying feeling. It arrives dragging along every earlier moment that was never properly resolved. One message can open a floodgate. One sentence can knock down a wall that took years to build. One admission can expose an entire history of emotion in a single breath. That's the real power behind urgency. But listen closely here, because urgency also reveals character. When a person finally speaks up, how they speak matters just as much as the fact that they spoke at all. Are they being honest, or are they performing? Are they speaking to actually heal something, or just to soothe their own guilt? Are they speaking to genuinely reconnect, or only to regain access to you? Are they speaking with real responsibility, or only with sentiment that fades by morning? The soul can usually tell the difference. And here's the important part. Not every urgent message deserves your immediate surrender. Not every sudden return is a true return. Not every apology equals real transformation. Not every confession actually leads to change. It helps to look beneath the surface rather than getting swept up by it. So yes, the message might be completely real. The feeling behind it might be real. The longing might be genuine. But real emotion on its own isn't automatically enough. True alignment requires truth, consistency, and courage sustained over time, not just in one emotional moment. So if your person does reach out, listen not just to the words themselves, but to the energy underneath them. Pay attention not only to what's being said, but to what's actually being admitted through their tone, their timing, and their actions. A heart can speak beautifully and still not be ready for what it's asking for. A person can sound completely sincere and still be incomplete in the work they need to do. Real healing takes more than a dramatic moment of expression. It takes ongoing awareness. And awareness is the real challenge when it comes to love, because love without awareness has a way of turning into projection. We start imagining what we want to see instead of what's actually there. We hope. We fill in the gaps ourselves. We get attached to possibility rather than reality. But when real awareness enters the picture, we start seeing the actual human being standing in front of us, not the fantasy version, not the fear-driven version, not some idealized version we built in our head. We see their limitations clearly. We see their wounds. We see whether they're actually capable of taking responsibility. We see whether they can genuinely meet us in truth or not. That's exactly why an urgent message can be both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. Beautiful, because it might finally reveal what had been hidden for so long. Dangerous, because it might tempt your heart to rush right back into old patterns you worked so hard to break. So the wiser move is to receive the message with both openness and discernment together. Don't slam the door shut before you've even listened. But also don't hand over your peace before you've actually seen consistency show up. Don't confuse emotional intensity with emotional maturity, because they are not the same thing at all. Maybe this is the real lesson hiding underneath everything tonight. On the surface, this is about an urgent message from someone in your life. But underneath that, there's a deeper truth. Your heart is always receiving messages in one form or another. Your soul is always listening, whether you notice it or not. Your unconscious mind stays active even when your conscious mind insists otherwise. We're not nearly as disconnected from each other as we sometimes think. We're not as indifferent as we like to pretend to be. We're not as finished with certain people as we tell ourselves we are. Human connection leaves traces behind. Love leaves traces. Regret leaves traces. Unspoken truth leaves traces. And eventually, all of those traces start demanding some kind of attention. So what should you actually do when this urgent message finally arrives? First, don't panic. A powerful message can shake your whole nervous system. It can bring excitement, fear, hope, and confusion all crashing in at once. Breathe through it. Let that first wave pass before you react. Let your emotions settle enough that you can actually hear things clearly. Not every intense feeling is a reliable guide. Sometimes the strongest feeling in the room is just an old wound getting touched again. Second, don't rush to decide your entire future based on one single moment. A message is a beginning, not a conclusion. A beginning can matter a great deal, but it's still not the whole story on its own. Don't let one text message decide your destiny for you. Let patterns reveal themselves naturally over time. Let time tell you the truth. Let actions confirm what words alone can only promise. Third, pay close attention to what your own inner self is telling you. Do you feel calm, respected, and safe? Or do you feel anxious, confused, and pulled straight back into an old familiar cycle? Your inner response matters more than you might think. Often the psyche knows the truth well before the conscious mind is ready to accept it. Notice what your body is telling you. Notice whether your sense of peace expands or shrinks around this person. Remember your worth and never abandon your boundaries for someone else's return. An urgent message does not guarantee love. It may bring reunion, closure, or truth. Stay open but wise. Real love requires honesty, responsibility, respect, and consistent actions, not just strong emotions or temporary urgency. Growth is what transforms a connection from fantasy into something genuine. Hold on to hope, but balance it with awareness. If someone returns, look beyond their words and examine their actions and intentions. Don't mistake emotional intensity for genuine love. The real lesson is not whether they miss you, but whether you've grown in self-awareness, boundaries, and self-worth. Whatever happens, stay grounded in your dignity, inner peace, and self-respect, because your most important relationship is the one you have with yourself.